हेलो एवरीवन। सो फ्रेंड्स, आज की क्लास में हम अल्फ्रेड टेनिसन के MCQs पार्ट 2 की बात करेंगे। आइए स्टार्ट करते हैं। हु रोट द लेडी ऑफ शैलोट? अल्फ्रेड टेनिसन। इट इज़ बिलीव्ड दैट टेनिसन लूजली बेस्ड द कैरेक्टर ऑफ द लेडी ऑफ शैलोट ऑन अ मेडन फ्रॉम अर्थरियन legend. What was the name of this woman? Elaine. In the poem, the lady of Shalott is cursed. What is the only way she can view the world from her tower? Through a mirror. Which night caused the lady of Shalott to forget the curse when she caught a glimpse of him? Sir Lancelot. What was written on the prow of the Lady of Shalot's boat? The Lady of Shalott. What was the name of Tennyson's father? George Clayton Tennyson. Tennyson and two of his elder brothers were writing poetry in their teens, and a collection of poems by all three was published locally when Alfred Tennyson was only 17. Alfred Tennyson was a student of King Edward VI Grammar School from 1816 to 1820. What did Alfred Tennyson nickname the valley where the British soldiers rode? Valley of Death. Thomas Edison made sound recordings of Tennyson reciting his own poems late in Tennyson's life. Among others, which poem did Tennyson include in his recording? The charge of the Light Brigade. At Trinity College, Alfred Tennyson joined a secret society called the Cambridge Apostles. Who wrote the poem All Things Will Die? Alfred Tennyson. Which poem of Tennyson attracted the attention of the scholar Herbert Spencer? The Two Voices. The poem Ulysses by Tennyson is written in blank verse. In this poem, a mythical hero describes his discontent and restlessness upon returning to his kingdom Ithaca after his far-ranging travels. Which poem? Ulysses. Despite his reunion with his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus, yearns to explore again. What? Ulysses. This poem tells the story of a heroic princess who forswears the world of men and founds a women's university where men are forbidden to enter. Which poem? The Princess. It is a serio-comic blank verse narrative poem by Tennyson. Which poem? The Princess. This poem of Alfred Tennyson is based on the story of the Countess Godiva, an Anglo-Saxon lady who, according to legend, rode naked through the street of Coventry. Which poem? Godiva. Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal is a sonnet written by Alfred Tennyson. Which poem has been described as one of the most Virgilian of Tennyson's poems and perhaps his most famous lyric? Tears, Idle Tears. Who said about which poem that it was about the passion of the past, the abiding in the transient? Tennyson said about Tears, Idle Tears. At Cambridge, Alfred Tennyson met Arthur Hallam and ... who became his closest friends. William Henry Brookfield. Reportedly, it was thought to be no silent honor for a young man of 20 to win the Chancellor Gold Medal. Here, young man of 20 refers to Alfred Tennyson. What made Tennyson leave Cambridge before taking his degree? The death of his father in 1831. Arthur Hallam was engaged to Tennyson's sister Emilia Tennyson. Yes, it is true. While at college, Alfred Tennyson won the Chancellor's Gold Medal for his poem. Which poem? Timbuktu in 1829. Timbuktu was written in 1829. How many parts are there in Maud, a monodrama? 3. Which book of Alfred Tennyson was received unfavorably? his third book entitled Poems. Which two famous poems of Tennyson are there in the book entitled Poems? Break, Break, Break and Ulysses. Which work of Tennyson was published anonymously? In Memoriam. Tennyson's monodrama is Maud. Queen Mary is a play written by Alfred Tennyson. Harold is a historical drama written by Alfred Tennyson. Becket is a drama written by Alfred Tennyson. In 1833, Tennyson published his second book of poetry. The 1833 volume met heavy criticism, which so discouraged Tennyson that he did not publish again for 10 years. In 1884, Queen Victoria created him Baron Tennyson of Aldworth. Tennyson believed that society should progress through gradual and steady reform, not revolution. The inspiration for Tennyson's Mariana comes from which Shakespearean play? Measure for Measure. Where did Tennyson conceive of the idea for Tears, Idle Tears? Tinton Abbey. The final section of In Memoriam describes the marriage between which two people, Tennyson's sister and Edmund Lushington. Which romantic poet was still alive when Tennyson published his 1842 collection? William Wordsworth. The notion of crossing the bar is a metaphor for dying. Tithonus is loved by the goddess of dawn. Tennyson's family were Whigs by tradition. Upon passage of the 1832 Reform Act, Tennyson broke into a local church to ring the bells in celebration. Yes, it is true. Virginia Woolf wrote a play titled Freshwater. In it, she shows Tennyson as host to his friend Julia Margaret Cameron and G.F. Watts. Tennyson was the first to be raised to a British peerage for his writing. In which poem did Tennyson intend to discuss the relationship between men and women in Victorian England? The Princess. Ulysses, Tithonus and Idylls of the King by Alfred Tennyson are all written in blank verse. In contrast to his earlier poetry, Tennyson's later poetry can be characterized as narrative rather than lyrical. The Lady of Shalott works on a magic web. In The Lady of Shalott, what breaks after the lady looks out of the window? The mirror. Tennyson praised whom? Giordano Bruno and Spinoza on his deathbed, saying of Bruno, his view of God is in some ways mine. Who wrote in her diary that she was much smoothed and pleased by reading In Memoriam after Albert's death? Queen Victoria. Prince Albert was the hubby of Victoria, who was largely responsible for Tennyson's appointment as poet laureate. Prince Albert. Who wrote about Tennyson? Very peculiar looking, tall, dark, with a fine head, long black flowing hair and a beard, oddly dressed, but there is no affection about him. Queen Victoria. What is breaking in Break, Break, Break? The sea. The speaker of Break, Break, Break cannot speak. It is likely that Break, Break, Break is about the death of Tennyson's friend. Who was Tennyson's intimate college friend who inspired the confessional autobiographical poem In Memoriam? Arthur Hallam. The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Tennyson is a dramatic tribute to the British cavalryman who rode ode on the death of the Duke of Wellington. Alfred Tennyson. Who wrote ode sung at the opening of the international exhibition? Alfred Tennyson. Who said there was a pond in the park on which in winter my father might be seen skating? sailing about on the ice in his long blue cloak. Tennyson's son, and unlike investment in Dr. Allen's ecclesiastical wood carving enterprise soon led to the loss of much of the family fortune and led to a serious depression. Who invested? Tennyson, who possesses the record of having the longer tenure of poet laureateship. Alfred Tennyson, who famously described Tennyson as the saddest of all English poets. T.S. Eliot, who said that Tennyson was the stupidest of all the English poets. W.H. Auden, Tennyson has written a poem on the tomb of a Mughal emperor on whose tomb Akbar. Tennyson has written a poem on which Indian city Lucknow. When Tennyson died, a copy of Shakespeare's play was found lying under the cover of his bed. Which play was it? Cymbeline. Tennyson generally portrays women as gentle and refined. Who among the Victorian poets is the most sensitive to the conflict between the old and new? Tennyson. Tennyson's poetry represents the Victorian compromise. What was the Victorian compromise? It was the compromise between aristocracy and democracy, between morality and sexuality, and between doubt and faith. How many years did Tennyson take in completing In Memoriam? 17 years. The Cup is a Tragedy, written by Alfred Tennyson. Queen Guinevere is a character which occurs in Tennyson's poem Passing of Arthur. The only knight of the Round Table who remains alive after the passing of Arthur is Bedivere. For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. This line comes from The Brook by Alfred Tennyson. What is Shalott in the poem The Lady of Shalott? An island. A long poem of over 3000 lines written in blank verse by Alfred Tennyson is Maud. Tithonus is a dramatic monologue by Alfred Tennyson. By the end of In Memoriam, the speaker re-embraces a Christian vision of afterlife. Tennyson's poem ... is not merely a pastoral elegy but also a deeply philosophical reflection on religion, science and immortality. Which poem? In Memoriam. Tennyson's The Princess is a socio-comic attempt to handle the theme that was then known as the New Woman. Tennyson wrote a comedy on a story from Boccaccio. Which play? The Falcon. Which poem of Tennyson includes a choric song? The Lotus Eaters. The epic was written as a frame for which poem by Tennyson, Morte d'Arthur. Tennyson's swan song is Crossing the Bar. Tennyson described this poem as a little Hamlet. Which poem? In Memoriam. Tennyson's favorite poem was Maud. Which of Tennyson's work was described by T.S. Eliot as the most unapproachable of all his poems? In Memoriam. Tennyson's friend Arthur Hallam died of a stroke at the age of 22. Who is the 9th most frequently quoted writer in the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations? Alfred Tennyson. Alfred Tennyson was born into a middle class family. Who wrote The Charge of the Light Brigade? Alfred Tennyson. About which war was the Charge of Light Brigade written? The Crimean War. So friends, thank you so much. See you again.